The moment CEO Randall Halverson said, "You're being reassigned," my stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables. I'd given 10 years to Halverson Dynamics. 10 years of 16-hour days, missed birthdays, sacrificed relationships. I was their youngest executive, the first woman VP in the company's history. Until that Tuesday morning. Departmental restructuring, Randall said, not meeting my eyes. His cologne, that expensive bergamot scent, suddenly smelled sickening. We need to reallocate resources. Reallocate to where? My voice came out steadier than I felt. HR Director Patricia slid a paper across the mahogany table. When I read it, the room tilted. Mailroom associate. Silence. Then laughter. Muffled, cruel laughter from behind the conference room doors. They'd been listening, waiting for this moment. "You're demoting me from VP to mailroom?" The words felt absurd leaving my mouth. Effective immediately, Patricia said, her lipstick too red, her smile too sharp. Badge downstairs by noon. I walked out on shaking legs, past curious stares, into the elevator that descended 13 floors, from executive suite to basement. The smell of cheap perfume and ink followed me down. Within an hour, everyone knew. My inbox flooded with messages wrapped in fake sympathy. "Tough break, Claire. You'll bounce back. Guess you flew too close to the sun. Such a shame. You were so promising." Promising. Past tense. My former assistant, Becca, the woman I'd mentored for 3 years, recommended for raises, covered for when her kid was sick, walked past my desk without making eye contact. She carried a stack of files toward my old office, now occupied by Elliot Crane. Elliot. My former colleague turned rival. The man who'd spent 5 years undermining every project I led, every presentation I gave. Now he had my corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. He paused at my cubicle. They'd moved me to a temporary desk while processing my reassignment, and smiled. That particular smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Guess we'll see how well you sort mail, Claire. Might be more your speed." I gripped my coffee mug so hard I thought it might shatter. But I smiled back. "I'm adaptable." His smirk would haunt me. For a while. The mailroom was exactly what you'd expect. Basement level. Flickering fluorescent bulbs that buzzed like angry wasps. The smell of toner, old paper, and something vaguely chemical that burned my throat. Concrete floors. Industrial metal shelving. A sorting table scarred with knife marks and coffee rings. I showed up my first morning wearing my $600 designer heels and tailored suit. The mailroom supervisor, a tired-looking man named Raymond, raised his eyebrows. "You're overdressed for this, honey." Force of habit. He showed me the sorting system, the delivery routes, the rhythm of the work. It was mind-numbing, soul-crushing. Exactly what they'd intended. They thought humiliation would break me, make me quit, save them a severance package. They were half right. Something inside me did break that first day. But broken things have sharp edges. And I was learning exactly where to cut. My first delivery route led me back upstairs, past gleaming offices, past my former colleagues who suddenly found their phones fascinating when I approached with the mail cart, past my old corner office. Through the glass walls, I saw Becca arranging things on the desk. My desk. She'd placed a box there labeled Claire/Confidential. My chest tightened. Those were my personal files. Strategic plans I'd developed. Client analyses. Market research I'd spent months compiling. All locked in my desk drawer when I left. Now sitting in plain sight in someone else's office. I knocked. Becca looked up, startled. Then her face hardened into something I didn't recognize. "Can I help you?" "That box. Those are my files." "Oh." She didn't move to get them. "Elliot told me to keep those for reference. You don't need them anymore. You're not in that position." The dismissal in her voice, from someone I'd considered a friend, hit harder than the demotion itself. "Right. Of course." I backed out before she could see my hands shake. Something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped into place. Into focus. A week into my mailroom sentence, the executive team invited me to lunch. To check in. See how you're adjusting. I should have known it was a setup. We sat at Romano's, the expensive Italian place where I used to close deals over wine and pasta. Now, I was the entertainment. Elliot dominated the conversation, bragging about the Meridian account, the massive tech client I'd spent 8 months cultivating, building a relationship with their COO, crafting a custom proposal. We closed the deal without a hitch, he said, cutting into his steak. Signed yesterday. $5 million over 3 years. My work. My relationship. My proposal. His signature. Glad my research paid off, I said quietly. He leaned closer. I could smell the wine on his breath, see the triumph in his eyes. Your former research. Funny how things work out when you have the right person handling them. Becca laughed. Actually, I laughed. The steak in front of me looked like blood on a plate. I couldn't eat another bite, but I filed that moment away. Every sneer, every word, every witness. That lunch turned my humiliation into something colder, sharper, more patient. I started staying late. Raymond didn't mind. He left at 5 p.m. sharp, grateful for someone willing to finish the day's sorting. The mailroom became mine after hours. Quiet, private, perfect. The shredding bin overflowed most nights, confidential documents waiting for disposal. The smell of burnt paper filled the air as the industrial shredder ground through page after page. One Thursday evening, I noticed a thick envelope sitting on top of the pile. Not shredded yet. Marked confidential, destroy after filing. The label read, Skyline Contract, Final Terms. Skyline. My project. The deal that had gotten me promoted to VP 3 years ago. The contract I'd negotiated from scratch with a major aerospace manufacturer. Why would they be shredding current documents about an active contract? I looked at the envelope for a long time. Listened to the building's silence. The ethical lines I'd never crossed before suddenly seemed less clear. I opened it, and my world shifted. Inside were memos between Elliot and CFO Duncan Reeves, dated over the past 6 months, discussing the Skyline renewal, the one I'd been managing before my demotion. But they'd rewritten everything. My contributions, my research, my budget projections, my relationship with the client had been systematically replaced with Elliot's name. One memo, from Duncan to Randall. Elliot's innovative approach to the Skyline renewal will save us significant overhead while improving margins. Elliot's approach. My data. My work. My innovation. Another email chain discussed my demotion. Claire's been asking too many questions about budget allocations. Better to reassign her before the audit. Too many questions. Because I'd noticed discrepancies in the quarterly reports. Expenses that didn't match project budgets. Money moving in ways that didn't make sense. And they'd buried me in the mailroom to shut me up. My hands shook as I read page after page. They hadn't just demoted me. They'd erased me, stole my work, and covered their tracks. Or so they thought. I shouldn't have done what I did next. But I'd crossed the line the moment I opened that envelope. I made copies. Every page. Every memo. Every email chain. The ancient copy machine in the mailroom wheezed through 47 pages while I stood guard at the door, heart hammering. I returned the originals to the shredding pile exactly as I'd found them. Let them think their secrets were destroyed. But I had everything. Every signature. Every timestamp. Every piece of evidence that proved they'd stolen my work, fabricated reports, and buried me to cover it up. I slipped the copies into a plain folder and hid them in my gym bag. That night, I drove straight home and uploaded everything to 3 separate cloud accounts. Then I sat in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, realizing I held a grenade with the pin pulled. The question was, when to throw it? I called Dr. Elaine Voss the next morning. She'd been my business law professor in grad school, then my mentor when I started at Halverson. She'd retired 2 years ago after 30 years as a compliance attorney. Claire? Is everything all right? I told her everything. The demotion. The stolen work. The shredded evidence I'd copied. My voice shook throughout. When I finished, silence stretched across the line. Then she spoke, calm and measured. You don't have to destroy them, Claire. Let them destroy themselves. What do you mean? You have evidence of intellectual property theft. But there's something else here. The mention of budget discrepancies, audits, reassignment to silence you. That's not just theft. That's a cover-up. She paused. Keep your head down. Keep watching. Document everything. They're hiding something bigger. Her words became my strategy. Patient, methodical, precise. I wasn't going to burn them. I was going to build a case that would incinerate them from the inside. 2 weeks later, while sorting executive mail, I spotted an envelope addressed to Elliot Crane, private and confidential. Protocol said private mail shouldn't be opened by mailroom staff. But protocol also said executives shouldn't steal their employees' work and forge documents. I held the envelope up to the light. Official letterhead from an accounting firm, Brennan and Associates. I shouldn't have, but I did. I carefully steamed it open, an old trick Raymond had taught me for packages that arrived damaged. The letter inside made my pulse spike. Dear Mr. Crane, per your request, we've completed the preliminary review of the offshore account transfers. The current structure through Blue Wave Solutions appears compliant, but we recommend additional documentation for the quarterly audit. Please advise on preferred timing for full assessment. Offshore accounts. Blue Wave Solutions. Quarterly audit. I took photos with my phone, resealed the envelope, and delivered it to Elliot's office. He barely looked at me, just grunted acknowledgement. I'd become invisible, which made me the most dangerous person in the building. That night, I stayed until 9 p.m. The building emptied out by 7 p.m. on Fridays. Perfect. I went through 2 weeks of archived documents marked for shredding, the ones Raymond had been too busy to destroy yet. Buried among routine memos and duplicate reports, I found expense sheets. Dozens of them. All showing payments to Blue Wave Solutions for consulting services. Amounts ranged from $15,000 to $85,000. Monthly, going back 18 months. I cross-referenced them with the company's public financial reports available on the investor relations website. The payments to Blue Wave never appeared. They'd been buried under generic categories like professional services and operational expenses. Someone was funneling money out of Halverson Dynamics through a shell company, and they were very good at hiding it. The signature on every authorization form, Elliot Crane. Secondary approval, Duncan Reeves, CFO. I photographed everything, uploaded it all, created a timeline spreadsheet documenting every transaction. By midnight, I had a map of corporate theft spanning over a year and a half. Millions of dollars siphoned through false invoices. And I was pretty sure I knew where that money was going. I spent my weekend doing research, public records, business registrations, LinkedIn profiles. Blue Wave Solutions was registered in Delaware, classic shell company jurisdiction. The listed owner, Rebecca Calloway. Becca. My former assistant. The woman who'd handed me my demotion paperwork with barely concealed satisfaction. I dug deeper. Rebecca Calloway's business registration listed a home address in Connecticut. Property records showed that house was owned by Duncan Reeves. Becca was Duncan's niece. And Elliot's girlfriend. I'd found their anniversary post on Instagram from 3 months ago, though both accounts were set to private. The picture became crystal clear. Elliot and Becca created a fake consulting company. Duncan, as CFO, approved the fraudulent payments. They split the money 3 ways. And when I started asking questions about budget discrepancies, as any good VP would, they couldn't risk me discovering their scheme. So they buried me in the mailroom. Made me a joke. A cautionary tale. Someone no one would believe even if I tried to speak up. But they forgot one thing. In the mailroom, I saw everything. Every document. Every confidential file they thought was safely destroyed. They'd put me in the perfect position to destroy them. Monday morning, I arrived at work with a plan crystallizing in my mind. But I needed one more piece. Proof of intent. That afternoon, I volunteered to reorganize the mailroom storage area, years of archived documents that should have been digitized but weren't. Raymond was grateful for the help. I found what I was looking for in a box marked HR 2022, my personnel file. Inside were my performance reviews. All excellent. Recommendations for promotion. Client testimonials praising my work. And then 6 months ago, everything changed. A memo from Elliot to Randall. Concerns about Claire Sterling's judgment and team dynamics. Recommend review of her position. Another from Duncan. Budget questions suggest possible overreach. May need departmental restructuring. Dated 2 weeks after I'd asked Duncan to explain a $250,000 discrepancy in the quarterly report. They'd planned my demotion from the moment I got too close to their theft. Documented false concerns. Built a paper trail to justify destroying my career. All to protect their fraud. I photographed every page. The evidence was complete. Damning. Irrefutable. Now I just needed to decide what to do with it. Alright, I need to stop here and ask you something. Because this is where everything changed for me. I had proof. Complete, documented, undeniable proof that my executives were stealing millions, framing me, and destroying careers to cover it up. I could have walked out right then. I took my evidence to a lawyer, filed a wrongful termination suit, gotten my settlement, and moved on. Or I could wait, watch them, let them think they'd won, and then burn their world down at exactly the right moment. What would you have done? Would you have walked out with your evidence and filed immediately? Or would you have waited for the perfect moment to strike? Tell me in the comments. Because I chose to wait. And what happened next proved I'd made exactly the right choice. I decided to become invisible. Perfectly, strategically invisible. I stopped wearing my designer suits. Wore jeans and company polo shirts like Raymond. Let my hair go unstyled. Stopped wearing makeup. The executives literally stopped seeing me. I'd push the mail cart past their conversations and they'd keep talking, discussing confidential deals, client strategies, budget concerns. Every night, I'd stay late catching up on filing. Really, I was documenting everything. Every suspicious payment. Every forged signature. Every piece of the puzzle. I created a detailed timeline. Organized evidence by category. Intellectual property theft, financial fraud, wrongful termination, conspiracy. Built a case that would survive any legal challenge. Dr. Elaine reviewed everything remotely. Claire, this is prosecutable. Criminal charges level. I know. Are you sure you want to do this? Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. I thought about Elliot's smirk. Becca's cold dismissal. 10 years of my life erased. My reputation was destroyed. My name was stolen from my own work. I'm sure. Then we need to choose the moment carefully. Maximum impact. The moment came 2 weeks later. I was delivering afternoon mail when I heard Elliot on the phone in his office. His door was cracked open. I paused, adjusting packages on my cart, listening. The quarterly audit's in 3 weeks, he said. Brennan's handling the offshore reconciliation. As long as Duncan keeps the paper trail clean, we're untouchable. A pause. No one's looking at Blue Wave. Halverson's lawyers would never, he laughed. Relax. Claire's sorting mail in the basement. She's broken. Even if she suspected something, who'd believe the disgraced executive? My phone was recording in my pocket. Every word. Crystal clear. Just keep the invoices consistent with the expense reports. By the time anyone could piece it together, we'll have moved everything offshore. They'll never trace it back. He hung up, leaned back in his chair, my old chair, completely confident. I delivered his mail, smiled politely. He barely glanced at me. Thanks, Claire. You're doing great down there. Happy to help, I said. Walking away, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not revenge. Something more precise. Purpose. That evening, I didn't go home. I went to a public library across town and used their computers to create an anonymous email account. Encrypted. Untraceable. I compiled everything. The forged documents, the Blue Wave invoices, the expense report discrepancies, the offshore account references, Elliot's recorded conversation, my stolen intellectual property, the HR memos planning my demotion. 47 pages of evidence. Organized. Annotated. Damning. I sent it to the Halverson Dynamics Board of Directors' private email list. Every member. With the subject line, Urgent. Embezzlement and fraud. Evidence enclosed. The message was simple. This information was compiled by a concerned employee who discovered systematic financial fraud, intellectual property theft, and wrongful termination to cover criminal activity. All evidence is documented and verifiable. An independent audit is recommended immediately. I hit send at 11:47 p.m. on a Sunday night. They'd see it first thing Monday morning. Then I drove home, hands steady on the wheel, and slept better than I had in months. Monday morning, I showed up to work at 8 a.m. like always. Sorted the mail, loaded the cart, started my delivery route. By 9:30 a.m., whispers started. Executives huddled in offices. Doors closed. Voices raised. At 10:15 a.m., Randall Halverson himself came down to the mailroom. His face was gray, hands shaking slightly.
Claire.
A word. We went to a small conference room. He sat down heavily. Did you send an email to the board last night? I met his eyes.
No.
I sort mail. I don't have access to board member emails. Someone sent detailed allegations of financial fraud. With evidence. A lot of evidence. He paused. Evidence that could only have come from internal documents. Maybe you should investigate those allegations instead of worrying about who reported them. His jaw tightened. This is serious. If these accusations are proven, if they're proven, several executives committed crimes and destroyed an employee's career to cover it up. I stood. Is there anything else? I have mail to deliver. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Really seeing me.
No.
That's all. By noon, everything had changed. Corporate security appeared. HR started pulling files. 3 board members arrived in person. Unusual for a Monday. I delivered mail to every floor, watching the chaos unfold. Executives sweating through meetings. Assistants frantically searching for documents. At 2 p.m., Becca was called to HR. She didn't come back. At 3 p.m., Duncan Reeves left the building with a cardboard box under his arm, escorted by security. By 4 p.m., Elliot's office was being searched by 2 men in dark suits. Legal, probably. Or corporate investigators. Raymond found me in the mailroom. Claire, what the hell's happening up there? I think they're cleaning the house. You know something about this? I organized mail into slots, not looking at him. I know that bad things catch up with bad people eventually. He studied me for a long moment. You're not as broken as you pretended to be, are you? I never broke, Raymond. I bent. There's a difference. Tuesday morning, Elliot Crane's office was empty. Personal effects gone. Computer removed. The space sanitized like he'd never existed. Rumors flew. Criminal investigation, embezzlement, fraud charges. Numbers ranging from $2 million to $5 million. Multiple employees implicated. I kept my head down, sorted mail, delivered packages. Invisible. Until Patricia from HR called me. Claire, Randall Halverson would like to see you. His office.
Now.
I took the elevator up 13 floors. Back to the executive suite. The same conference room where they destroyed my career 3 months ago. Randall sat at the head of the table. 2 board members flanked him. They all looked exhausted. Sit down, Claire. I sat. The investigation has confirmed significant financial irregularities. Elliot Crane, Duncan Reeves, and Rebecca Calloway were operating a fraudulent consulting scheme. They've been terminated and face criminal charges. I said nothing. We also discovered evidence that your work was plagiarized. Those concerns were fabricated to justify your demotion. That he cleared his throat. That a significant injustice was done to you. Yes. We'd like to offer our deepest apologies and reinstate you immediately. VP of Strategic Development. Your old office. Increased salary. Whatever it takes to make this right. I looked at him. At the board members. At the same time, people who'd watched me were humiliated and did nothing.
No.
The word hung in the air like smoke. Randall blinked. No. You demoted me to the mailroom. Watching them destroy my reputation. Let them steal my work. And you did nothing. I leaned forward. You're not offering me my job back because it's right. You're offering because I'm a liability. Because I could sue. Because I probably should. Claire. I'm not coming back. I want a severance package. Compensation for wrongful termination, defamation, and intellectual property theft. And I want it in writing that my work on the Skyline and Meridian accounts will be properly credited. One of the board members, a woman named Vanessa Sterling, spoke up. What number are we talking about? 6 figures. Minimum. Plus a letter of recommendation that makes clear I left in good standing due to company restructuring. Not one word about my reassignment. They exchanged glances. Vanessa nodded.
Done.
Our lawyers will draft it today. I stood. Then we have a deal. I'll have my attorney review it before I sign. As I reached the door, Randall called out, Claire? For what it's worth. I am sorry. I am sorry. We should have protected you. I didn't turn around.
Yes.
You should have. The settlement came through 2 weeks later. $275,000. Letter of recommendation. Acknowledgement of my contributions to major accounts. Legal release of all claims. Dr. Elaine reviewed everything. This is good, Claire. You can walk away clean. And them? Elliot, Duncan, and Becca are facing fraud charges. The DA's office is building a case. If convicted, they're looking at 5 to 7 years. Justice. Real justice. Not just corporate consequences, but criminal ones. I signed the settlement. Cashed the check. And the same day, news broke. Major fraud uncovered at Halverson Dynamics. Whistleblower exposes multi-million-dollar scheme. The article credited an anonymous employee with providing evidence. But industry insiders knew. They put the pieces together. My phone rang constantly. Headhunters. Former clients. Competitors offering positions. The job offers ranged from $200,000 to $350,000. VP roles. Director positions. One CEO opportunity at a startup. I'd gone from the mailroom to the most wanted in 60 days. I accepted a position at Apex Innovations, a competitor I'd always respected. Chief Strategy Officer. $320,000 base plus equity.
My own team.
Real authority. On my first day, the CEO, Cameron Wright, shook my hand. Claire Sterling. The woman who took down Halverson's corruption from the mailroom. That's legendary. I just documented what they tried to hide. You did more than that. You showed integrity when it would have been easier to walk away. That's the kind of person we want leading our strategy. 3 months in, I'd rebuilt my reputation. Industry publications profiled my story, the executive who exposed fraud while working in the mailroom. It became a case study in corporate ethics classes. Halverson Dynamics settled multiple lawsuits. Their stock dropped 40%. Randall resigned. The company's reputation never recovered. Meanwhile, I thrived. Led major acquisitions. Built new client relationships. Got promoted to COO after 18 months. And every time someone tried to minimize my work or steal credit, my team knew I'd burn down an empire from a basement mailroom. They didn't test me twice. 2 years after my settlement, I was cleaning out my home office when I found it, that first confidential folder I'd copied. The pages were yellowed now, edges worn from when I'd handled them with shaking hands. I almost threw them out. The evidence was archived legally now. I didn't need them, but I kept them, tucked in a file labeled Remember. Because I never wanted to forget what I'd learned. That power isn't about your title or your office or your salary. Power is knowing when to speak, when to watch,
When to strike.
They demoted me thinking it would break me. Instead, it positioned me perfectly to see everything they were hiding. The mailroom gave me access to every document, every confidential file they thought was safely destroyed. They'd put me in the one place where I could gather evidence they never knew existed. I smiled, filing the folder away. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor about justice. Now, when I tell this story, and I do tell it, to young professionals, to women starting their careers, to anyone who's ever felt powerless, I always end the same way.
They wanted to humiliate me.
Bury me. Make me quit. Instead, they gave me a front row seat to their own destruction. Every forged document, every fraudulent invoice, every piece of evidence I needed, they delivered it straight to me, thinking I was too broken to matter. That's the thing about underestimating people. About assuming someone's powerless just because you took away their title and their office. You forget that real power isn't about where you sit. It's about what you see, what you know, and what you do with that knowledge when the moment comes. They thought the mailroom was a tomb. I turned it into a war room. And when I finally struck, I didn't just destroy their careers. I exposed a system that allowed them to thrive in the first place. Because sometimes, the quietest revenge is letting people bury themselves with the very tools they tried to use against you. And the most satisfying justice? Walking away while they're still drowning in the mess they created. I was a $200,000 executive until they demoted me to the mailroom. They thought that was my ending. It was just my beginning. Because the person sorting your mail? She sees everything. And she remembers.